Welcome to Servant Leadership, making the commitment to serve first. This is a brief video to get you familiar with servant leadership and some of the terminology as we begin our strategic planning process. Our objectives are to look at the background of the project, define servant leadership and 10 characteristics that contribute to it. We'll look at a current measurement of servant leadership at South King Fire and consider servant leadership as part of the strategic leadership process. This project was derived from the Executive Fire Officer Program, a 4-year program taught at the National Fire Academy that teaches leaders how to manage and lead adaptive change. That is, change that requires new ways of thinking. Each year, students attend a 2-week course on campus and then return home to complete an applied research project with the goal of addressing real problems within their own department. I was assigned to complete one of my applied research projects on the topic of servant leadership by Chief Church. The chief has been working with his administrative team on servant leadership for years, and now is the time to infuse servant leadership throughout the department at all levels. This project was designed with the chief in November of 2015. The purpose is to assist the team with introducing servant leadership into our strategic planning. The goal is to educate and inform, not to control the process in any way, but rather to invite you to help create an environment for servant leadership to grow and thrive at South King Fire. The final product that I produced for the project is a code of servant leadership, which is submitted for your consideration. You can adopt the code or use it as a guide for your work within the team. The strategic leadership process remains a consensus-based operation, so you get to decide how the information is applied. Robert Greenleaf coined the term servant leadership during a lengthy career as an inside management consultant and trainer for AT&T beginning in the 1920s. His initial essay, written in 1969, popularized interest in servant leadership that has continued to grow. The military has embraced servant leadership, and in recent years, the fire service has begun to move towards servant leadership as a preferred management style. Greenleaf said, "The best test, and difficult to administer, is this: do those served grow as persons? Do they, while being served, become healthier, wiser, freer, more autonomous, more likely themselves to become servants? And what's the effect on the least privileged in society? Will they benefit, or at least not be further deprived?" Greenleaf found that servant leaders begin with a natural feeling of wanting to serve others rather than the natural feeling to want to lead others. Serve to lead. These 3 words form the motto of the Distinguished Royal Military College at Sandhurst, United Kingdom. In 1947, the motto was chosen to represent an obvious paradox, one so powerful and important that if cadets haven't understood the meaning of the paradox, they have no business aspiring to be officers in the British Army. You see, young people do not respond well to the old-fashioned command and control style of leadership. Clearly, the evolution of the workforce is driving the need to change leadership styles. Polls show that those of the millennial generation who voluntarily terminate their employment don't quit their organization, they quit their boss. James Hunter, a noted servant leadership writer and researcher, perhaps provided an easier definition for servant leadership. His definition is simply, servant leadership is identifying and meeting the legitimate needs of those we lead. He distinguishes wants versus needs, saying that slaves meet other people's wants, servants meet other people's needs. One important aspect of servant leadership involves legislating behavior. Because leaders have been given power to carry out their responsibilities, they are empowered to legislate behavior, and it is a vital part of the circle of servant leadership. Hunter described the importance of love in the concepts of servant leadership. He described a love of behavior and choice, not necessarily a love of feeling. But Vince Lombardi probably said it best when he described the relationship of love to leadership. He said, "I don't necessarily have to like my players and associates, but as a leader, I must love them. Love is loyalty. Love is teamwork. Love respects the dignity of the individual. This is the strength of any organization." Hunter's leadership model best summarizes the climb to becoming a good leader. The model is an upside-down pyramid to symbolize the process of growth, which begins with the focused will to serve others. Showing love, how we treat people, leads us to serve and sacrifice for others, which will build authority. Only then can we become successful leaders. Servant leadership is not a one-way commitment. It's a reciprocal choice between leader and follower based upon principles. He explains that moral authority is another way to define servant leadership. Moral authority is always mutually developed and shared. Authority is always built on serving and sacrificing for those you lead. Larry Spears identified 10 characteristics that contribute to servant leadership, such as listening. Communication and decision-making skills need to be balanced by a deep commitment to listening intently to others. Servant leaders seek to identify the will of a group and clarify that will. They listen receptively to what is said and unsaid, and hear their own inner voice. Listening, coupled with reflection, is vital to the growth and well-being of servant leaders. Empathy. Servant leaders strive to empathize with others, accept and recognize people for their unique spirits, assume the good intentions of coworkers, and don't reject them as people even when they refuse to accept certain behaviors or performance. Healing. The healing of relationships is a force for transformation and integration. Servant leaders heal themselves and their relationships to others. Many people have broken spirits and suffer from emotional hurts. Servant leaders help make whole those with whom they come in contact. Awareness. General awareness and self-awareness helps servant leaders to understand issues involving ethics, power, and values, and to view most situations from a holistic position. As Greenleaf noted, awareness is not a giver of solace. It's a disturber, an awakener. Able leaders are sharply awake and reasonably disturbed. They are not seekers of solace. They have their own inner serenity. Persuasion. Servant leaders rely on persuasion, not positional authority in making decisions. They seek to convince others rather than coerce compliance. This element offers one clear distinction between the authoritarian model and that of servant leadership. The servant leader is effective at building consensus. Conceptualization. Servant leaders nurture their abilities to dream great dreams. Looking at problems or people from a conceptualizing perspective means that you think beyond day-to-day realities. This requires discipline and practice. Most leaders are consumed by the need to achieve short-term goals. Servant leaders stretch their thinking and seek a delicate balance between conceptual thinking and day-to-day operational approaches. Foresight, the ability to foresee the likely outcome of a situation, enables servant leaders to understand the lessons from the past, the realities of the present, and the likely consequences of a decision for the future. It is deeply rooted within the intuitive mind. Stewardship. Peter Block defines stewardship as holding something in trust for another. Greenleaf believed that CEOs, staffs, and trustees all play roles in holding their organizations in trust for the greater good of society. Servant leadership, like stewardship, assumes first a commitment to serving the needs of others. It also emphasizes the use of openness and persuasion rather than control. Commitment to the growth of people. Servant leaders believe that people have an intrinsic value beyond their tangible contributions as workers. They are committed to the growth of their people, doing all in their power to nurture their personal and professional growth. And finally, building community. The servant leader senses that much has been lost as a result of the shift from local communities to large institutions as primary shapers of human lives. This awareness causes the servant leader to identify some means for building a sense of community. Greenleaf said all that is needed to rebuild community as a viable life form is for enough servant leaders to show the way. So what's the current measure of servant leadership at South King Fire? Research was conducted early in 2016. You may have even participated in a survey. For details, refer to the handouts, or you can read from the paper directly. What we do know is that strategic alignment is absolutely critical to high performance in an organization. Our data showed there could be some misalignment between the organization's commitment to servant leadership and the follower outcomes, or the feeling that those led have about their leaders. We have a great opportunity here to align our actions with our intentions to create a powerful servant-led organization that will contribute not only to our success within the department, but also help achieve our goals of better serving our community and earning their continued support as we move forward. Please review the paper, the executive summary, the data that's included in the Code of Servant Leadership. Feel free to call or email for any assistance or questions, and we'll see you at the meetings.